if you forgot, there's a genocide going on, and the United States is paying for it. Shock.
Yes, yes. The Jews are under persecution of anti-Semitism. In case you haven't been paying attention, just say.
So, Peter, you sent this to me. This happened, I guess, today. 45 Israel lobby-backed House Democrats joined every Republican in the Congress, minus Thomas Massie, in voting to place sanctions on the International Criminal Court to protect Israel. So basically what this is about is the International Criminal Court committed the crime, so-called crime of calling for the arrest warrants of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They also called for the arrest warrant of the leader of Hamas, if memory serves me correct. But Lindsey Graham and the rest of the war hawks in the Republican Party, and Trump, who's, by the way, not anti-war.
Can you before we get to the devil woman, can you go up for 1 second? Just hold it right there. Okay. So these are 4 congressional representatives in the state of Florida, 3 of them in South Florida. Biggest shame to Sheila Sherfilis McCormick. I know her personally, and honest to God, it's like I could tell them that you're fucked up, and they know they're fucked up, but they're so afraid to stand on principle. Why do you take their money? You don't have to take their money. Darren Soto's a piece of shit. He's the complete opposite of Maxwell Frost, who's in the Orlando area. Darren Soto shouldn't even be in Congress right now. The only reason he's sitting there is because the big guy, Alan Grayson, decided that he thought he had the gravitas to run for statewide office in the state of Florida. He failed miserably doing that. Lois Frankel, who was my congressional representative when I lived in Delray Beach, this is she is what you would expect. She represents all of the old Jewish biddies that live all throughout Palm Beach County. They all love Israel. They all think it's perfect. And then you have Mr. Jared Moskowitz, who is only in Congress, much like Matt Gaetz, because of his father and the influence that he provided politically. He represents 2 of the most affluent Zionist Jewish areas in the United States, Boca Raton and Parkland. And this is a result. This is what ends up happening. Not only is he a massive Zionist, he's also an insider trader. But nobody.
Well, they're all insider traders. But anyway.
They are. But nobody takes the crown quite like the person on the next slide. And of course, you know who I'm talking about. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the biggest Zio-Nazi grifter in all of Florida politics. She is still in charge of the Democratic Party. She is one of the 45 Democrats who voted in favor of the, I guess what you would call the criminal court, not being able to prosecute against Israel. But if that's not enough, if you guys have been keeping up on current events, Debbie doesn't want to leave you hanging. She also wants to let you know that for the second time in 3 years, she is the #1 insider trader in the Democratic Party. She does not hold back. She is beyond brazen in her corruption at this point.
Well, Peter, I'm sorry to tell you, she actually was #2. So her stock, according to Unusual Whales, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's stock portfolio increased in value. She was the second highest increase. I forget who was #1, but you know.
Well, no, my point. Well, listen, Debbie is #2 if you catch my drift, but she was #1 in the Democratic Party. There's one Republican that is above her in terms of their proficiency. And just so you guys know, if you are not following, obviously APAC Tracker, which is a great channel on X, but also follow Unusual Whales. They also track a lot of that data too. And there's a lot of people that have been popping up that have been following the stock trades of all of these representatives.
But let me just say what this is in a nutshell. Bipartisan. So I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about Republicans or anti-war. I want to fucking explode whenever I heard these leftists say Trump's more anti-war than the Democrats. They're all fucking warmongers. Trump's anti-war, the guy that tried to institute a coup in Venezuela to take out Maduro, the guy who bombed Syria twice, the guy who armed Ukraine. You forget that, MAGA? Trump armed Ukraine. Suddenly you were against Ukraine when Biden was giving them money. But when Trump armed Ukraine, oh, I forgot that. He assassinated Soleimani in Iran, which could have created World War III. Oh,
Easily.
by the way, after he lost, which he did lose, contrary to the bullshit he told you, the army had to stop him from bombing Mexico. Did you know about that? You might have not heard that on Fox News. He's not anti-war. So stop it. And none of these Republicans are anti-war. And by the way, anti-war Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jimmy Dore and the rest of them forgot to report that she bought stock in Lockheed Martin right before coming out against the Ukraine war. They're all corrupt. Republicans are warmongers and Democrats are warmongers. So I don't want to hear a goddamn thing that one is less of warmongers than the other. But what this does, go ahead.
And the one thing that I just wanted to point out, if you think about it, outside of Rashida Tlaib on the Democratic side and Thomas Massie on the Republican side, who do you have? The whole thing is one. You could argue for Bernie. You still technically could, but he's got a lot of blemishes on his record too. It is a completely fucked up world that is Capitol Hill. That's how it is.
But I just want to, in a nutshell, what this bill does. I mean, you didn't really need the bill to deliver this news. Basically, is a large swath of the Democratic Party and all the Republican Party basically giving an international get-out-of-jail-free card to Israel.
Correct.
They're basically saying Israel could do anything. Israel could assassinate other countries' leaders. Israel could commit genocide. Israel could round up children and nuke them. It doesn't matter. If you try to hold the leadership of Israel accountable, we're going to sanction you. And that is dangerous. And I don't care who it is. I would be saying the same thing if America was sanctioning the International Criminal Court on behalf of, I don't know, Canada or somebody. And I'm Jewish, and I've been open. My wife's Israeli. I know people in Israel. I'm not against the people of Israel. But you have a Zionist, batshit right-wing government, and you can't support that. You can't support nuking the most densely populated place on earth, which is Gaza. You can't support Greater Israel, which is basically trying to take over large swaths of Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank. No, that's not in America's interest or anyone's interest. And I also want to show, on top of this, this bill that they just passed. This is from Common Dreams. Morally bankrupt Biden blasted for $8 billion in his final act. He's sending another $8 billion more in arms to Israel. The Biden administration is ending its tenure as it is acted throughout, said a new policy co-founder, Josh Paul, with complete disregard for Palestinian humanity, American laws, and American interests. Human rights advocates in the United States and around the world on Monday condemned outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden for continuing to fuel Israel's genocidal assault on the Gaza Strip with a pending $8 billion weapons package. Since Axios revealed late Friday that his administration had notified Congress of the deal, Biden had faced fresh outrage, with critics calling the president morally bankrupt and his decision to keep arming Israel willful madness. Quote, too many kids still alive in Gaza for Joe Biden's liking. Youssef Manoyar, a Palestinian-American political analyst, said on social media, this is an administration of cowards and criminals and will go down as a historic worst. Two men who resigned from the Biden administration over U.S. support for Israel's assault on Gaza shared sharp critiques on Monday. Quote, the Biden administration is ending its tenure as it has acted throughout, said ex-U.S. State Department officer Josh Paul, with a complete disregard for Palestinian humanity. I don't want to say it's going to get worse because I don't really know if you're Palestinian. I mean, how much worse can it get? But again, they're both corrupt. Trump took $100 million from Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson is the wife of Sheldon Adelson. He's dead now, but while he was alive, he was, other than the Koch brothers, the second big dick in the Republican Party. Well, he probably had a small one, but you get my point. He was a billionaire casino magnate, and all he cared about was Israel, and he gave Trump $30 million. Well, it might have been more than 30. The reporting said 30. $30 million, basically for Trump to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which Trump happily did. And now his widow gave him $100 million in the 2024 election. And Trump has basically said to Netanyahu, do whatever you want, just make it quick. So as bad as it is now, and this is not giving Biden a pass whatsoever, there's not going to be a reprieve under Trump. Let's be clear. Your thoughts?
You know, one of the best podcasts that I've seen in recent memory was when Thomas Massey went on with Tucker Carlson, and he talked about how not him, but basically every member of the Republican Party has an AIPAC handler that basically they have to meet with on a regular basis. This is how it is. This is how it has seeped so deep into our everyday economic and political life. This is the reason why we can't have, or we haven't, not yet. That doesn't mean it'll last forever. But when you think about not just the genocide, but this idea that we are being dog walked every day by Israel, and thinking about the harm that they're doing to our country, to the rest of the world. And remember, it's like I said, it's always about money and power. $500 billion worth of natural gas under Gaza soil, trillions more in real estate redevelopment along the Mediterranean coastline, wanting to expand territory into Syria, into Jordan. This is what happens when you basically think that the backing of the U.S. military will permit you to do these heinous crimes. And you said this on the podcast. We've said it on ours. The second the United States decides it's not supporting Israel anymore, it's all over. Like all of it. It ends in an instant. And don't think for a second that a lot of that $8 billion, for example, isn't lining the pockets of AIPAC and DMFI, all of these corporate oligarchic institutions that are protecting their investments. That's what it's about. That's why, and when you think about it, Jordan, that's why the Israel lobby has to act the way that it does. That's why they have to invest so much money and time and effort in it. It's very much like private healthcare on the private health on the domestic side, the for-profit health system. They have to spend endless amounts of money and endless amounts of lobbying. Why? Because these are commodities we don't need. We don't need a for-profit health system, just like we don't need to be allies with Israel. But because there's so much money and influence being spent to maintain these relationships, that's how they're able to do it. And the second anyone even slightly gets out of line, just like they did in Westchester County, New York, $25 million for one congressional candidate. And one of the first things that Mr. Cross-Eye, which is what he should be referred to, ends up doing as soon as he gets elected, after he defeated Jamal Bowman, he takes a picture with his Manhattan AIPAC handler. They want to let you know clear as day that this is how it is, that we own your ass. Same thing with Wesley Bell. And then if you guys haven't seen this MSNBC article that just dropped the other day, you got some jackoff over at MSNBC writing an article about how Wesley Bell is the future of the Democratic Party. Well, you know, he may not be wrong. I mean, the truth is the Democratic Party is basically kind of broken and hopefully done in a lot of ways. Do not resuscitate. But this is kind of what we're stuck with now. We're stuck with this reality of either we are ready for a real political revolution in which the old way of doing business is simply not going to work anymore. It must change. And I'm not saying that the other CEOs, I mean, the CEOs matter, but I do think that the bigger scandal now is the fact that you've got churches all over this country that are heavily invested in for-profit health. You want to really start a revolution in this country, ladies and gentlemen? Start a movement to end tax exemption for churches or just religious institutions in general.